The plane descended through layers of pale cloud, revealing a silver city stretched like glass over bone. Seoul shimmered below. Neon veins, tight highways, and skyscrapers too polished to betray the corruption underneath. Della Brown leaned back in her window seat, watching it all with calm eyes and a whispered prayer on her lips. She wasn't here for sightseeing, not this time. Not when a CEO nearly lost his life in what the company called an unfortunate accident. It had taken 2 calls, one from a nervous executive with too much to lose, and another from a trusted source in the U.S. Embassy, for Della to say yes. Yes to flying halfway across the world. Yes to stepping into another high-stakes corporate war zone. Yes to what her spirit knew before her mind caught up. This assignment wasn't about security. It was about purpose. By the time her boots touched Korean soil, her instincts were already sparking. At Incheon Airport, a black sedan waited. No nameplate, no smile from the driver, just a quick bow and a trunk popped open. Inside, a secure tablet with a message typed in sharp digital font. "Welcome, Miss Brown. Your first briefing is in 1 hour. CEO Han expects punctuality." She almost laughed. CEO Han, Jun Woo Han. A billionaire who didn't date, didn't do press interviews, and didn't speak unless it involved numbers, mergers, or dismantling a competitor. A man who, according to Della's report, had survived 3 suspicious incidents in the last year, and now barely escaped a fatal explosion in his boardroom. Internal sabotage, external leaks, disappearing witnesses, silent payoffs, and no arrests, no accountability, just silence. Until now. The Han Group's headquarters in Gangnam was too perfect. Mirror-like surfaces, scentless air, and pressure-tight glass elevators that climbed 42 floors in seconds. But beneath the perfection, Della felt it. Tension, spiritual unrest, greed woven into the wallpaper, eyes that watched her too long, employees too afraid to meet her gaze. This isn't a company, she thought. It's a kingdom cracking from within. And its king? He was waiting. The executive suite smelled like steel and eucalyptus. Jun Woo Han stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to her, arms folded. He didn't turn when she entered. For a moment, the only sound was the hush of filtered air and her boots crossing marble. Then his voice, deep, controlled, bored. "You're late by 67 seconds. Della didn't blink. "Then let's not waste another one." That made him turn. He was taller than expected, dressed in a black suit that looked like it had been sewn onto his frame. No tie, crisp shirt, cold eyes, gray like rain before a storm. But something else too. Fatigue. Something hiding behind the arrogance. He looked her up and down. No handshake. "A female bodyguard. A Christian one," she added with a smile. "You might need both." His jaw twitched. "Do you honestly believe prayer can stop a bullet?" "No," Della said calmly, "but I believe it can stop the person who pulls the trigger." That silenced him. She held her ground, folding her arms loosely. "You hired me to protect your life. That includes discerning who's trying to take it." "I didn't hire you," he said coolly, turning back to the window. "My board did. And yet here I am." The briefing was short, clinical, and incomplete. Jun Woo offered no theories, no speculation. His assistant, a twitchy man named Mr. Park, gave her access credentials and a printed building map. What they didn't give her was truth. But Della didn't need them to, because 20 minutes later, standing alone in the center of the scorched boardroom, charred edges, melted wires, the faint smell of acid still clinging to the vents. She felt it. The attack wasn't just physical. It was targeted, intentional, and spiritually charged. She closed her eyes. breathed in, and quietly, under her breath, she prayed, "Father, I don't need every answer yet. I just need your covering. Show me where the traps are. Show me who I'm really guarding. And remind me that no weapon formed against me, or him, will prosper." Later that night, as the city pulsed beyond her hotel window, Della knelt beside her bed, Bible open to Psalm 27. She didn't pray for money. She didn't pray for protection alone. She prayed for Junwoo, not as a client, not as a CEO, but as a man, lost, numb, surrounded by enemies in suits. A man God might be preparing for more than empire. When she finished, she looked out over the skyline and whispered the words that had been rising in her spirit since the moment she boarded the plane. "I wasn't sent here by a company. I was sent here by God." The next morning, Seoul rose under a slate-colored sky, as if the city itself had paused, caught between dawn and something darker. Inside the Han Group Tower, everything remained controlled. The lobby air still smelled of sterile ambition. Security still saluted her like a silent question, and Jun Woo-han still hadn't said a word to her beyond protocol. He was a fortress of precision, and Della Brown had no intention of storming his gates. She just needed to guard them. At 7:58 a.m., Della entered the executive strategy room, the day's intelligence report in hand. It was a glass-walled war room. Smooth walnut table, 12 high-backed chairs, no clutter. Junwoo was already seated at the head of the table, back straight, suit immaculate, no notes. Just black coffee, untouched. He didn't look at her when she came in, but she felt it, that silent tension, like something unspoken was always happening just beneath the surface of his breath. She laid the file down. "Morning," she said, her tone even, not warm, not cold, just present. His reply came without eye contact. "You're punctual today." "You should see me when I'm late," she said with a light smile. Still no reaction. His eyes scanned the report while hers scanned him. His posture said confidence, but his jaw was tight. His fingers twitched once when she walked by, and his eyes, sharp, unreadable, lingered too long on her hand when she reached for the screen remote. He was observing her, but not just professionally, spiritually. He didn't understand it, and that bothered him. 10 minutes in, she felt it again, the same spiritual pressure she sensed in the burned boardroom, a heaviness, a watching. She paused, gently closed her eyes, and prayed, softly, briefly, out loud. "Lord, illuminate every shadow and blind every trap. Cover this room in your wisdom and peace." When she opened her eyes again, Junwoo was staring at her, blankly, but longer than necessary. The silence hung like crystal between them. Then he spoke. "You do that a lot." "What?" "Pray." "I breathe a lot too," she said. "Prayer just works better." Something flickered across his face. Contempt? Confusion? "Do you think prayer will save me from what's coming?" "No," Della said gently, "but it might save you from who you'll become because of it." That made him look away. Later that day, the silence between them only grew heavier. Della walked beside him through a facilities tour, his staff bowing as they passed, the corridor spotless, the air-conditioned chill never warm enough to melt the frost in his expression. He barely said a word. Every question she asked was answered in 2 syllables or less. When she requested to review security footage, he said, "Ask Park." When she asked about past threats, he replied, "In the files." When she tried to bring up internal loyalty risk, he shut the topic down with, "This is business, not a battlefield." That one made her pause. She turned, stopped him mid-hallway. "Tell me something, Mr. Han." He turned slightly, gaze cool. You're not authorized to question my judgment. I'm not questioning it. I'm trying to understand it. She took one step closer. You almost died 3 weeks ago, and yet you act like nothing happened, like your life has no value beyond numbers and meetings. His jaw tightened. You hired a protector. But what you really need, she added softly, is a heart that still believes it's worth protecting. He didn't answer, but he didn't walk away either. By evening, her back was to the window again. The city below looked different at night, flickering, faceless, but somehow honest in the dark. She stood at her temporary desk in the lower executive wing, rereading the notes from the surveillance sweep, when a soft footstep behind her made her turn. Junwoo stood there, no assistant, no file in hand, just him, and a question in his eyes. You pray for me, he said. It wasn't a question. She met his gaze. Yes. Why? Because someone should, she answered simply. I don't believe in God, he said. I know. You think he listens to you? I don't pray because he listens to me, Della said softly. I pray because I know he sees you. That stopped him. For a moment, the cold CEO looked like a man with no armor, no empire, just breath, and hunger, and confusion. Like something in his spirit recognized what his mind still refused. He took a step closer, just one, but didn't speak. Della didn't move. She didn't smile, didn't soften, didn't flirt. She simply let the stillness do what no strategy had managed all day. Let truth linger. Let God whisper. That night, alone in his penthouse, Junwoo stood by the window, staring at the skyline he used to feel proud of. But all he felt now was tired and haunted by a voice, by a woman, by the way she prayed like the world could be moved by belief alone, by the fact that, for reasons he couldn't name, he didn't want to be cold anymore. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, his heart didn't feel numb. The invitation came wrapped in silver, silk, and power. The Han Group Annual Philanthropy Gala, a night of cameras, whispered alliances, and crocodile smiles disguised as donors. It was being held at the iconic Glass Garden Hotel, where chandeliers dangled like constellations, and every step echoed a secret. For most, it was a showcase of wealth, but for Della Brown, it was a battlefield with champagne. She stood outside the private elevator, wearing a fitted black gown with a discreet holster at her thigh and an earpiece under her natural curls. The diamond studs weren't real. The cross around her neck was. She adjusted her bracelet, concealing a signal trigger, and glanced at the clock. 7:44 p.m. Junwoo was never late, but tonight, he wasn't early either. When the elevator chimed open, she turned and nearly forgot what she was doing. He stepped out like an unfinished poem in a tailored black tux, no tie. The collar of his white dress shirt opened just enough to make the air shift. His hair was styled back, sharp and clean. But his eyes, they searched her for something she hadn't offered yet. Your security team is already in position, she said, clearing her throat and moving into business mode. Entry hall, ballroom, restrooms, and kitchen exits have been swept. Cameras are clean. You'll be shadowed from a distance, but I'm your point. Junwoo looked at her. Really looked. And something flickered across his face. You're not just a bodyguard, he said quietly. I never was. The ballroom glittered with Seoul's elite. Politicians, investors, celebrities in couture gowns, and heirs who had never worked a real day in their lives. There were photographers at every corner. Violinists played arrangements no one was listening to. Della stayed close, watching every hand that touched Junwoo's shoulder, every glass handed to him, every smile that lasted too long. Her instincts were humming. Something was off. Too many new staff. Too many unvetted servers. She radioed her team. Watch the bar. Yes, ma'am. Junwoo moved like he always did. Silent, observant, calculated. But tonight, he stole glances. At her, the way she stood slightly sideways, hand always near her right hip. The way she whispered into her comms while keeping her eyes on every angle. The way she nodded when she passed a nervous-looking caterer, and how the man immediately paled. Junwoo excused himself from a conversation with the minister's son and crossed to her. You don't belong in a room like this. She arched a brow. Neither do you. He almost smiled. Almost. You see everything, don't you? It's what I'm trained to do. Then what do you see now? She glanced up at him, eyes steady. I see a man surrounded by enemies, still deciding whether he wants to be rescued. That hit somewhere in his chest. Then, her earpiece crackled. Ma'am, poison alert. Floor 2, one of the wine glasses doesn't scan. Server headed your way. Table 7. Della's heart kicked. Table 7 was Junwoo's. In an instant, she moved, silent and surgical. Her body blocked the server's path just as he was about to place a glass in Junwoo's hand. New staff don't serve CEO Han, she said sharply. I was just... She knocked the glass from his hand. It shattered across the marble. Gasps, flashbulbs, people turned. Della grabbed the tray, yanked a cloth napkin from a nearby table, and wiped a single spot from the glass's rim. It turned green. Cyanide derivative. Her voice went steel. Jay, isolate the server, now. Copy. 2 security agents closed in instantly. Junwoo stood frozen, not in fear, but in calculation, in understanding. This wasn't an accident. It was another hit, and she had just taken the fall, publicly. Chaos ensued. Guests murmured. Journalists clicked. The scene spiraled. But Della, she calmly turned, walked to Junwoo, and gently took his hand. Come with me. He followed without question. They moved fast through a side exit, his guards shadowing but staying back. In the quiet of the rooftop balcony, the city roared below them. Junwoo stared at her. You saved my life. Della didn't answer right away. Instead, she pressed a small vial into his hand. Test it if you want. That wasn't wine. He looked down at her hand, still touching his. And that's when it happened. That's when he felt it. A current, warm and sharp, shot up his spine, spread across his chest, and landed deep in his gut. Not lust, not adrenaline. Life, something awakening. Something buried under years of numbness. He gripped her hand tighter. How did you know? I pray before every event, she whispered, and I pay attention. She tried to pull away. He didn't let go. His eyes searched hers. There were questions he didn't know how to form. Answers he didn't know he needed. You risked your life for me, he said softly. Della looked at him, calm, unwavering. I wasn't risking it, she replied. I was living it. By sunrise, the headlines were everywhere. CEOHANS, Who is the mystery woman? Han Group's moral image. In question as leaked photos show late-night rendezvous. Han shadow guard. Security or scandal. Junwoo stood at the window of his penthouse, fists clenched, eyes scanning the front page of the Seoul Global Ledger. And there they were, doctored photos. Him, Della, a darkened corridor. Her leaning toward him as if whispering something intimate. His hand on her back, but not the way it had actually happened. The angles were wrong, the context stripped. The implication unmistakable. It screamed affair, and worse, vulnerability. Cowards, he muttered. He didn't need to ask who had done it. Only two people had the motivation, access, and ruthlessness. His stepmother and his half-sister, Una. Della sat in the corner of a quiet tech lab 2 floors beneath the Han Group's main security office, examining the footage files on multiple screens. She'd slept maybe 3 hours. The gala chaos hadn't even settled before the gossip ignited. But this wasn't about reputation. It was about truth. And spiritual warfare wore lipstick sometimes. She fasted through breakfast. She prayed through the silence. And then she found it. A series of time-stamped, high-resolution event captures that told a different story. The real story. One that didn't involve shadowy seduction or whispered scandal. One that showed her guiding Junwoo to safety. One that could burn the lie to ash. She uploaded the files to a secure drive, made a backup, and straightened her shoulders. They weren't just trying to ruin him. They were trying to remove her. Damage control, sir. Mr. Park was pacing the boardroom like his shoes were on fire. The press is relentless. Stock sentiment dipped 3 points overnight. Major donors are texting the foundation office. Some of the executives want her reassigned. Immediately. Junwoo sat motionless at the head of the long conference table. His jaw was tight. His hands laced under his chin. Silent. Only his eyes moved, shifting to the flat screen as the photo leaked by a tabloid was projected across the room. I already gave my statement, he said evenly. You said it was fake, Park huffed, but the room believes what they see. No, Junwoo said sharply. They believe what they want to believe. The room fell quiet as the glass door opened. Della stepped in, wearing a navy blue suit that fit her like armor and confidence that couldn't be shaken by a headline. She held up a flash drive. May I? The executives hesitated. Junwoo nodded once. She moved to the laptop, plugged it in, and played the footage. First, a split screen. The leaked image beside the actual moment from the building's secure cameras. The difference? Staggering. Then, motion analysis, metadata, and timestamps, clearly proving that the leaked photo had been digitally manipulated. Even AI stitched. Finally, a single file played. The server who'd attempted to poison Junwoo being escorted out while Della shielded him. Not scandal, service, loyalty, protection. And when the screen faded to black, no one could say a word, until Della turned to them. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't drop. I didn't come here for your approval, she said, but I won't allow lies to dictate the truth. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to respect me. But you will not slander me to protect the egos of people who want this man dead. Silence. Then one of the senior board members, an older woman known for her razor-sharp ethics, spoke. She's right. And the tide shifted. Outside the boardroom, Junwoo caught up to her. Why didn't you walk away? He asked. I don't walk from fire, she said without pausing. I was born in it. He stepped closer. There was something different in his expression now. Something raw. People like you don't survive long in my world. Della turned to him fully. Then maybe your world's been missing people like me. He stared at her. Not like a CEO evaluating an employee. Not like a man trying to figure out a problem. But like someone watching his own stone heart begin to crack. I should have stopped the press sooner, he said. You weren't supposed to, she replied. God let the lie out, so the truth would follow. They stood there, alone in a corridor that had seen decades of secrets. And Junwoo whispered, I don't know what to do with a woman like you. She smiled faintly. Start by not trying to own her. He tilted his head. And if I want to protect her? Della stepped forward, close enough that he could feel her warmth. Calm, strong, real. You can't protect a woman sent by God, she said gently. You can only walk beside her. And before he could say anything else, she pulled the flash drive from her pocket, pressed it into his palm, and said, "Every lie will meet its truth. You just have to stand still long enough for God to reveal it." The storm grounded everything. Flights, signals, pride. Rain lashed against the runway in sideways sheets, thunder humming like an old war song overhead. Inside the private hangar lounge at Incheon Airport, the lights flickered once but held. A security team stood outside, alert but distant. Inside, only two people waited in silence, Junwoo Han and Della Brown. They were meant to be in Busan by now, for a crisis negotiation with a foreign investor threatening to pull out of a $1 billion project. But the jet hadn't moved, not because of the rain, because of the stillness. Something unspoken had settled between them since the boardroom scandal had been cleared. A weight, a shift, something neither of them knew how to name, but both felt humming beneath every breath. Della sat near the tall glass window, watching droplets chase each other down the pane. Her Bible lay open on her lap, unread but not forgotten. Junwoo stood across from her, leaning against a marble column, jacket draped over one arm, his eyes on her face more than the storm. "Why are you so calm?" he finally asked. She looked up slowly. "Because panic doesn't make God move faster." A flicker of a smile touched his lips, but it faded. "You always speak like that." "Like what?" "Like he's listening." "He is." Junwoo moved closer. "I envy that." He sat down across from her, elbows on knees, voice low. "I haven't said this to anyone. Not in years." Della closed her Bible and folded her hands, giving him her full attention. "I've built companies, crushed competitors, rebuilt empires from nothing. I've been in rooms with kings and liars. But there's something broken in me, no deal ever fixed." He stared at his own hands, flexed his fingers. "I haven't felt anything for a woman since I was 17. Della blinked. She didn't speak. Junwoo continued. "I don't mean attraction. I mean connection, warmth, longing, a reason to stay instead of walk out. I've tried, dated, slept, left." His voice broke a little on that last word. "I thought something was wrong with me. Medically. I got tested. Nothing. But the emptiness stayed." The storm cracked against the sky. He looked at her again, now more cautious. "And then you came." Della's heartbeat thudded once. "I ignored it at first, assumed it was stress or admiration. But the way I look for you in every room, the way your voice stays in my head after you've gone, the way you pray and I..." He cut himself off, chest rising. "I don't know what's happening." She didn't move, didn't react, just breathed. And then she said softly, "It's not obsession, Junwoo, but it could become that, if you let your wounds write the story instead of your healing." He went still. "You think I'm wounded?" "I think you're human and hurting." He leaned back, jaw clenched. "And what if this is the first thing that's ever made me feel alive again?" Della stood, gently crossing the space between them. She knelt, right in front of him. Not in submission, but in grace, in grounding. "You don't need to chase feeling," she said. "You need to heal enough to hold it when it finally comes." He looked down at her. Their eyes locked. Rain streaked the windows behind her like the sky weeping truths no one had said before. "You want to protect me?" she asked softly. "Then don't make me your escape. Let God be your anchor." He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Their fingers touched, warm, slow, reverent. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Whatever this is, it's the first thing that's ever felt real." The first threat came in the form of silence. A hard drive mailed anonymously to the Han Group headquarters. No return address, no note. Just a single black envelope with CEO Han handwritten in Korean across the front. The contents? Private boardroom audio, encrypted emails, personal itinerary details only 5 people knew. Della stood beside Junwoo's desk, arms crossed, jaw locked. He leaned back in his leather chair, the drive spinning slowly between his fingers. "They're watching us from the inside," she said. He didn't respond. His face gave nothing away, but she knew. This cut deep. Not because of the danger, but because someone close had betrayed him. Again. That night, Della skipped dinner. She turned off her hotel phone. She knelt on the cold floor, wrapped in silence and the flickering gold light of her Bible app screen. "You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you." Isaiah 26, verse 3. She fasted through the next morning. No coffee, no updates, just water and prayer. At 5 a.m., she walked the perimeter of the Han Tower alone, whispering scripture under her breath. Reveal every liar. Expose every snare. Protect the one you sent me here for, Lord, even from those who say they love him. By midday, her spirit stirred. Mr. Choi, Junwoo's head of global strategy, always in the loop, always 3 steps ahead, but too quiet lately, too polished, and too eager to keep Della out of key meetings. She traced metadata from the hard drive, unofficially, quietly. The transfer location pinged from a wireless access point registered to a G. Choi, hidden under a decoy name. Her stomach tightened. It was him. And he wasn't just leaking details. He was trying to frame Junwoo for insider trading, setting up a digital trail that pointed back to the CEO himself. She burst into the executive office just as Junwoo was signing off on an export deal. Her voice was calm but urgent. "Don't sign that." He paused, pen hovering midair. "Why?" "Because the man who gave you that document is selling you to the same people who tried to poison you." That got his attention. Within the hour, the evidence was laid bare. Della had printed every trace: IP logs, timestamps, surveillance slips, even internal code phrases used to manipulate calendar entries. Junwoo read it all, silent as glass. Finally, he looked up. "You're sure?" "I never speak unless I am." That was the moment it happened, the moment something unseen broke between them. Trust, real, whole, not just earned, but felt. He didn't ask why she went that far. He didn't need to. That night, he walked into his office long after everyone had gone home. The room was quiet, dark, except for a small leather-bound book sitting in the center of his desk. A Bible, not brand new, slightly worn, tabs sticking out, a gold ribbon marking a passage. Inside was a yellow sticky note in Della's handwriting. "Start with Psalms. When the noise gets loud, David shows you how to pray through it." Della. Junwoo stared at it for a long time. He picked it up, sat down, and opened it. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" Psalm 27, verse 1. He didn't even realize tears were in his eyes until one dropped on the page. He wiped it away fast, and then he read more. The next morning, Della walked in early, security folders in hand, prayer already on her lips. Junwoo was already at the window. She could feel it before he turned. Something in him was different. Lighter, but not weak. Calmer, but not distant. "Your strategy team is restructuring," she said, keeping it professional. "They know Choi is out, but they're not sure why." He nodded. "I'll handle it." Then he looked at her. Really looked. There was something raw in his expression. Not broken. Open. "You pray for me," he said, voice low. She smiled gently. "Someone should." She handed him another psalm, folded on a slip of paper, and added softly, "Until you learn to do it yourself." The second betrayal didn't come with sirens. It came in a sealed envelope. Thick, heavy, marked confidential, internal audit investigation, and it landed on Junwoo Han's desk at 6:42 a.m., before the sun rose and before he'd had his coffee. He flipped it open casually, expecting routine files, but the name typed in bold on the first page, Della Brown. Classified documents were accessed under her passcode, Mr. Park said, his hands shaking slightly as he pointed to the digital log entries. Encrypted files sent to an external proxy in New York. Junwoo's eyes narrowed. "She doesn't need proxies," he said flatly. "She is the firewall." "I understand that, sir, but the system doesn't lie. And neither does she." Park hesitated. "The legal team is pressuring for a response. If this leaks to shareholders, they'll demand her removal. At least temporarily." Junwoo didn't answer. His fingers were tight around the edge of the table, tighter around the war inside his chest. When Della walked into the office later that morning, she noticed it immediately. The shift in temperature. People wouldn't meet her gaze. Conversations paused when she passed. She walked straight to Junwoo's office. He didn't look up. "I heard there's a file." He said nothing. "Is my name in it?" Still nothing. Her breath caught just slightly. Junwoo. Now he looked up, and his expression was unreadable. Not angry, not cold, just distant. "Legal has recommended suspension," he said. The words hit like a slap. "You're suspending me? No one's accusing you yet." "You just did." He stood. "I didn't say I believed it. I said, we need time." She stepped back, wounded far deeper than she wanted to show. Time won't heal what silence kills. They stood facing each other in that office where trust had once started to bloom. Now it withered under the weight of a man who wasn't brave enough to fight for her. Yet. Her voice was steady, but her soul cracked as she said, "You know me." "I thought I did," he said quietly. That broke something, not just between them, inside her. An hour later, she was gone. Badge turned in. Access revoked. Team reassigned. They called it procedural. But Della knew better. It was exile, the worst kind. Not forced by enemies, but by someone you once believed would shield you. That night, Della sat in her hotel room. No security clearance, no job title, no vindication, just her Bible and her aching heart. She didn't curse him. She didn't rage. She didn't beg God to take the pain away. She opened to Psalm 31 and read out loud, "In you, O Lord, I put my trust. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in your righteousness." Her voice trembled, but her prayer did not. She closed the Bible, sat on the floor and whispered, "Cover him anyway, Lord." Even now, even if he never believes the truth, I still choose to pray for him. She turned off the lights, and as the room settled into quiet, her voice, just a whisper now, rose once more. Even if he believes the lie, God still knows the truth. The second explosion wasn't as loud as the first, but it hit closer. A black SUV, midnight, a quiet underground garage, 4 levels beneath the Han Group headquarters. Junwoo had stayed late, as always, reviewing a final draft of a recovery proposal that didn't feel right. Alone, quiet, then ignition. He had just closed the car door when the blast shattered every window on the north wall. The vehicle jolted from the shockwave, alarm screaming as smoke filled the air. His head hit the side panel. Blood, darkness, and somewhere between conscious and not, he saw her. Della, not real, just the image of her. That still voice, that unwavering presence. Even when they doubt you, I don't. Even when you fall, God doesn't. He opened his eyes to chaos and made a decision. The next morning, Seoul woke up to the headlines: second assassination attempt on Han CEO. Inside job feared. Investigation ongoing. Sources say CEO unharmed, but executives silent. Junwoo Han was not silent. He stood at the head of the Han Group boardroom, hair still disheveled from the night before, a bandage across his temple, and fire in his voice. "This ends now," he said. Half the room couldn't meet his eyes. "You accused a woman of treason. You doubted her integrity. You stripped her badge and revoked her access based on forged digital trails. And now, because of your fear and pride, I was nearly murdered." He turned to Mr. Park, then to Yuna, his half-sister, seated cold and still at the end of the table. "She didn't leak a thing." The room tensed. Internal security traced the proxy server to an overseas consultant recently contracted. "Through your division, Yuna. The access was rerouted through my former assistant's device, which was logged into Ms. Brown's terminal using a clone credential." Silence. Stone cold, but trembling now. Junwoo turned toward the door. "Bring her in." The glass opened, and Della stepped in. Hair pulled back, posture regal, wearing a black blazer-like armor, and grace like oxygen. She walked with no apology, no fear, but with God. Junwoo didn't even blink. "I asked her to return," he said clearly, "not to repair her name, because that was never broken." He looked directly at the cameras now being rolled and media summoned to witness. "But because I trust her," a pause, "I trust her with this company." He turned to face her fully now. "I trust her with my safety." And then, softer, but clear, "I trust her with my life." Later, outside the building, reporters swarmed like bees after thunder. Cameras flashed, questions flew, but Junwoo didn't let go of her hand. Not this time. And Della didn't hide. She didn't need to, because this wasn't about headlines. It was about restoration. It was about a woman who chose to pray when it would have been easier to hate, and a man who learned that silence can be betrayal. But truth, spoken at the right time, can raise the dead. As the flashbulbs burst and microphones crowded, she caught his eyes one last time. And in that moment, she didn't see fear, or doubt, or pride. She saw her prayer answered, in front of the world, in real time. Cameras flash, but Della sees only one thing: God answering prayer in real time. The night air wrapped around them like silence made visible. They sat on the rooftop terrace of Junwoo's private residence, one floor above the world, and yet for once, far below the weight of it. The city shimmered in the distance, all noise and light. But up here, it was just the two of them, wrapped in the hush of healing waiting to happen. Junwoo leaned forward on the bench, his elbows on his knees, gaze cast into the distance. Della sat beside him, not too close, not too far, hands folded in her lap, listening. She didn't speak. He wasn't ready. But tonight, he was willing. "It wasn't a heart attack," he said finally. His voice was low, strained, almost like a confession being torn from bone. Della looked at him, saying nothing. He swallowed. "My father. They said it was a heart attack. The media bought it. The board mourned. But I saw him that night. I heard the fight." He paused, Della waited. It was my stepmother. The words dropped like stone in still water. She said he'd signed over too much to me, that he was letting love cloud business. She accused him of ruining the legacy. He turned toward her now, eyes dim but locked on hers. And then he fell, right in front of me. Della inhaled softly, one hand instinctively moving near his, but not touching. She didn't call for help right away. She watched, waited. His jaw flexed, and when she did call, it was too late. I was 17, he continued, his voice like gravel, old enough to understand, too young to fight her. She controlled everything after that. Had me sent to a military prep school, said grief would make me weak, and weakness wasn't an option for a Han. A bitter smile curled at the edge of his lips. She controlled my meals, my schedule, my silence. Della's eyes were wet now, not because of the story, but because she could feel it. He wasn't just retelling history, he was bleeding it out. She told me if I ever made her look bad, she'd finish what the heart attack didn't. His voice cracked. I never told anyone. And then he looked at Della like a man finally allowing himself to hope someone might not look away. She didn't. Instead, she gently reached for his hand, held it, grounded it. Warmth passed between them. Not romantic, not electric, just real, present, safe. You're angry, she said softly. He looked down. I thought you were going to say, you need to let it go. No, she whispered. I'm going to say, you need to give it up. He looked at her, confused. To God, she explained, bitterness doesn't shrink over time. It just digs in deeper. It's not forgiveness that weakens you, Junwoo. It's trying to carry what only God can heal. His eyes shimmered again, and she knew he was fighting it. Not her words, but what they stirred, what they threatened to make real. Freedom. She opened her purse, pulled out her small, worn Bible, set it between them like an offering. I want to pray with you, she said. Not at you, with you. He didn't move, but he didn't resist. She took his hand again, closed her eyes. God, this man has carried pain far longer than he should have. He didn't deserve it. He didn't invite it, but he has survived it. And now, Lord, I ask you to step in where pain tried to build a throne. I ask you to touch the places he doesn't talk about and begin to restore what was stolen. Her voice grew quieter. I ask you to help him release what he's been gripping with white knuckles for years. She opened her eyes. He was crying, not loudly, not brokenly, but freely, and that was enough. They sat like that for a long time, until he finally whispered, Do you think I'm broken? Della reached over and brushed a tear from his jaw with the gentleness of grace. You're not broken, she said. You're being rebuilt. The evidence wasn't hiding. It was buried, on purpose. Behind shell companies, dummy accounts, and a 17-character password hidden in the metadata of an old contract signed 5 years ago. The kind of fraud so expertly layered that most investigators would dismiss it as coincidence. But Della Brown wasn't most investigators. And this wasn't coincidence. This was calculated sabotage. And it was coming from someone who knew exactly where to hide the poison. Junwoo's stepmother. Look at this, Della said, spinning the laptop toward him in the private research room, far from company servers and prying eyes. That contract she pushed through back in 2020? It wasn't about real estate. It was about ownership transfer of digital assets, specifically crypto holdings offshore, all routed through a Singapore bank registered under a private foundation in Hong Kong. Junwoo leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. She's been siphoning money from our tech division. For years, Della confirmed, building her own empire inside yours. He blew out a slow breath, jaw tightening. She was planning to hollow it out before handing it to her son. Della nodded once. You were the face. But they were preparing to make you a puppet. The room went still. And then something shifted. Not just in the strategy. In him. He looked at her, not as the protector, not as the woman he'd once doubted, but as the only one who ever stayed when things got dangerous. The files were massive, gigabytes of encrypted transfers, private correspondence, and foreign tax records. They had 30 minutes before the window closed on a server trace that would link her stepmother directly to the fraud. But then, the system glitched, the screen flickered, the cursor froze. Someone's trying to wipe the data, Della said, already moving. She yanked an external drive from her bag, plugged it in, and ran a mirror copy script while overwriting the wipe command. The room lights dimmed for a second. Power fluctuation. Then the screen blinked black. Junwoo cursed under his breath. Did we lose it? Della tapped a command. The screen glowed. A progress bar. Transfer complete. She looked up at him, calm and unshaken. Not on my watch. They backed everything up, filed it under a secure subserver with a personal encryption code Junwoo himself created, then hid the drive in a sealed black case, placed it in Della's personal security locker, and reported nothing. Yet, not until they were ready to strike with full proof. As they exited the room, adrenaline still humming through their bodies, Junwoo paused at the threshold. You saved more than the company today, he said quietly. You saved me from walking into another trap. Della glanced at him. Her heart was steady, but her eyes held softness now. Not weakness, just the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need armor to be powerful. Courage isn't just about dodging bullets, she said. It's about knowing where to shine the flashlight. He gave a soft, almost breathless laugh. You always know what to say. She looked at him with a tilt of her head. That's not me. That's God. They walked outside into the Seoul night. Cool air brushing past like peace in motion. The skyline blinked around them, unaware of the war that had just been defused beneath it. They stood by the rooftop rail of the empty terrace, city stretching wide below them. No one was watching. No one was listening. But something about the moment still felt sacred. Not because of the files, not because of the scandal they'd just uncovered, but because Junwoo reached for her hand. Not urgently, not in fear, but in recognition of her loyalty, of her steadiness, of her presence. And when she didn't pull away, he held on just a little longer than necessary. Why are you still here? He asked quietly. She smiled gently. Because you needed someone who doesn't just believe in you, but believes in the God behind you. A pause. He looked down at their joined hands. What if I still don't know how to believe? She turned toward him, her voice as calm as ever. If you ever wonder where God is, she said softly, look at what he's letting us expose. The air was too quiet for a Tuesday morning. Even in Seoul, where the traffic hummed like blood through arteries, there were days when something felt off. Della felt it the moment she stepped outside her apartment building. The wind was too still. The parked car across the street hadn't moved in days, but today its windows were tinted darker. And the man reading a newspaper near the coffee cart? He was wearing gloves. In October, she whispered a quiet prayer under her breath. God, go before me. Junwoo had called her at 6:27 a.m. New meeting location. We've been moved to a secure office off-site. Only you and I know. I'll send a car. She didn't question it, didn't hesitate. She trusted him. But she also knew, sometimes, a good man's voice can be used by the wrong people. And something about this shift, it wasn't right. The ambush came fast, too fast. The alley behind the parking structure was supposed to be a shortcut to the meeting building. She took it without thinking, like she had hundreds of times. Then, gunshot. The crack echoed off concrete. Pain bloomed across her ribs like fire. She fell hard, rolled, another shot. Footsteps. Someone approaching fast. She couldn't breathe. Blood soaked through her white blouse, warm and terrifying, but still. Her hand reached for her small cross pendant, clutched it, whispered, "Not today, devil. Not today." Junwoo was in a video briefing when the call came. At first, he didn't answer. Then he saw the words flash across the screen. Brown. Shot. ICU. Seoul National. The room tilted. He dropped everything. He ran through the hospital corridor like a man fleeing fire. No security, no protocol, just raw panic. He reached the emergency ward, nearly tackled a nurse when she said, "Only family allowed." "I am her family," he growled. He didn't care who was watching, didn't care how it looked. All he saw was a hospital bed and Della, pale, motionless, tubes, monitors, oxygen mask, blood still fresh on the gauze over her abdomen. And just like that, Junwoo Han forgot every empire, every title, every boardroom. He sank to his knees beside her bed, and for the first time in his life, he prayed. Not the kind of prayer that sounds rehearsed, the kind born in the gut, the kind that only rises when your heart is in pieces and no one else can fix it. He bowed his head, clutched her hand. His voice broke as he whispered, "God, if you're real, I won't pretend I know what to say. But you know her. You know what she's done for me. You know how much she's believed, even when I didn't." His voice cracked. "I never asked you for anything. I didn't think I had the right. But please, don't take her." He laid his head against her arm, hot tears soaking into the blanket. "Don't take her." A breath, then softer, "Teach me how to believe like her." It was the beeping that comforted him. Steady, quiet, unyielding. A slow rhythm like God's reminder, she's still here. Junwoo Han had barely left the hospital room in 48 hours. He sat in the corner, slouched in a chair too stiff for sleep, hair messy, shirt wrinkled, tie long discarded. His eyes never left her. Della lay still, an IV in her arm, her chest gently rising beneath white sheets. The bandages on her abdomen were smaller now. The swelling had gone down. She was stable, breathing on her own. But she hadn't woken, not yet. On the second night, he stayed past visiting hours again. The nurses no longer questioned him. He was C.E. Ohan, yes. But in this room, he wasn't untouchable. He was simply hers. He pulled her Bible from the side table. He'd been reading it, awkwardly at first, then slowly, page by page. There were verses underlined in red, margin notes, prayer requests written like letters. His name had appeared more than once, sometimes in block letters, other times scribbled between verses, "Lord, soften him, show him truth, make him whole." He swallowed the lump in his throat. He turned to the page she'd marked with a golden ribbon, Psalm 27, and out loud, in the quiet of her room, Junwoo read, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life." He stopped, lowered the book, and looked at her. She stirred just before dawn. It was barely a movement, a flutter of her fingers, a sigh too deep for sleep. He stood instantly. "Della?" Her lashes lifted slowly, eyes blinking in the soft blue light of morning. and when her gaze finally focused on him, her first word wasn't where or what happened. It was, "Hey," soft, dry, alive. Junwoo exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding for days. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. She smiled weakly. "Not that easy." Tears stung his eyes. She reached for his hand. "You prayed," she said, her voice hoarse but steady. "I did." "Did it feel strange?" "No," he said. It felt overdue. A week later, she returned to the Han Group building. Slow steps, healing ribs, a warm welcome from shocked but smiling employees. That Friday, she walked past the break room and paused. She found Junwoo sitting quietly in a chair, surrounded by 6 employees, 2 of whom were new believers. It was the Faith Circle, the tiny Bible study Della had started months ago, just once a week, open to anyone, no pressure. Junwoo had never once come, until now. He looked up, startled to see her, but not ashamed. In front of everyone, he gestured to the chair beside him. She sat. He cleared his throat, and then he read aloud, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" The room was quiet, not with awkwardness, but with reverence, because this wasn't just a CEO reading scripture. It was a man being reborn. Later, when the group ended and they stood in the hallway alone, he turned to her with quiet emotion in his eyes. Not showy, not performative, just full of peace. "Now," he said softly, "I finally understand what protection means." The invitation came in the form of silence. Not a memo, not a calendar alert, not a summons through the assistant or a formal schedule. Just a message from Junwoo sent late at night. "Can you meet me tomorrow at the rooftop at 8 p.m.? No guards, no staff, just you." Della read it twice, then again. The same rooftop where he'd once told her everything about his father, where he held her hand like a promise he didn't know how to make yet, where he once whispered her name like a prayer he hadn't learned to pray. She replied simply, "I'll come, but only if it's not about strategy." "It's not," he wrote back. "It's about surrender." The city glittered like 1,000 beating hearts beneath them. Della stepped out onto the rooftop at 8:01. She wasn't late. She'd paused in the elevator to pray, to breathe, to be sure, because she knew what this moment would be. And she couldn't walk into it with emotion alone. She needed God to be in it, or not at all. Junwoo stood by the edge, dressed not like a CEO, but like a man who was no longer trying to be one. No suit. Just a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up. His hair slightly tousled by the wind. When he turned, his face softened, like he was seeing something he'd waited for his whole life. "I was going to say this in pieces," he began. "I planned a slow build-up, a safe version, but I can't do that anymore." He stepped closer, and for the first time, he wasn't guarded. "I love you, Della." Her heart kicked, but she didn't move. He kept going. "I don't love you because you protected me, or because you prayed for me, or because you saw what others ignored. I love you because you never tried to change me. You simply believed God could." His voice thickened. "And now I can't imagine becoming anything if you're not part of it." Della blinked. Once, then again. It wasn't that she didn't feel the same. She had for a while now, but love, even when holy, comes with timing, and timing without prayer becomes disaster. "Junwoo," she said gently, but he raised a hand. "I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm not asking you to carry me spiritually. I'm asking you to walk beside me. I'll honor your convictions. I'll guard your boundaries. I'll never weaponize your faith or try to shrink it so I can understand it." His voice dropped, eyes brimming. "I'm not just pursuing you because I love you. I'm pursuing you because I believe God placed you in my life as a turning point, and I want to build something he doesn't have to tear down later." Della didn't respond immediately. She turned slightly, staring out over Seoul, the same city that tried to bury this man, that tried to turn him into a legacy of control, money, and shame. Now that same man was standing behind her, offering her not a title, not a ring, but a promise to honor God with her, not around her. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Lord, is this the moment?" A breeze moved across the rooftop, and in her spirit, it wasn't thunder or lightning she heard, just peace, and that was enough. She turned back to him slowly. Her eyes shimmered, but her voice was sure. "I was afraid this would distract us from purpose." "It won't," he said, "and I feared it would cloud your healing. It's part of it. And I needed to know if I was still leading you, when it should be God." "I'll follow him with you," he said. "Not behind, not ahead, with." She reached out, took his hand, held it, and finally smiled. "Then let's build something God can bless." The day began with a storm, not the kind that rattles windows, but the kind that brews in human hearts when truth finally refuses to stay buried. The Han Group's grand conference hall was transformed into a battlefield. Rows of executives, legal teams, journalists, and at the center of it all, Junwoo Han and Della Brown. He wore no mask of corporate calm today, just conviction. And beside him, Della, serene, steady, Bible tucked in her bag like a sword she didn't need to draw to know its power. "Gentlemen and ladies of the board," Junwoo began, voice measured but firm, "today's meeting will not be about quarterly projections or market forecasts." He looked around the table, the same table where his father once sat, where betrayal had been planned, where trust had been traded like currency. "It's about truth," gasps, murmurs. Someone's pen hit the floor. He placed a single black case on the table, the one Della had kept locked for weeks. He pressed the button. The screen lit up. Rows of files, offshore account statements, wire transfers, forged signatures, and then emails. Han Yuna to Mrs. Han. "Once Junwoo signs off, we'll initiate the final transfer. He'll never know until the media does." Della projected the next slide, the evidence trail linking their shell companies in Singapore, Cayman, and Zurich. Her calm narration sliced through the room like silk over glass. Then came the silence, the kind that follows undeniable proof. "Are you accusing your own family?" one board member stammered. Junwoo's voice didn't tremble. He'd already buried the boy who once needed their approval. "No," he said quietly. "I'm revealing what they chose to become." The stepmother stood. Even in disgrace, she had the posture of royalty. Her lipstick was perfect, her eyes sharp. "You have no admissible evidence. All of this is circumstantial at best," she said coldly. "And the files you claim were retrieved. How do we know they weren't fabricated by your new bodyguard?" All heads turned to Della. It should have felt like accusation. It didn't, because Della didn't flinch. She closed the laptop slowly, folded her hands on the table, and spoke with the calm of someone who had already talked to heaven before stepping into the room. "Because I prayed for the truth to speak for itself," she said, "and God never loses a case." A ripple of whispers moved through the hall, but before anyone could respond, the doors at the back opened. Everyone turned. A tall man entered, nervous, clutching an old briefcase. He walked like someone carrying a secret too long. Della's eyes widened. "Mr. Park?" she whispered. The former accountant, the one who'd vanished 2 years ago after refusing to sign falsified audits, the one she'd been praying for every night since this began. He approached the board table, bowed low, and said, voice trembling but clear. "I have something to add." He set down a folder of original bank slips, personal correspondence, and witness statements, his name signed at the bottom of every document. "I left the company when I realized what Madame Han was doing," he said. "She threatened my family. But Ms. Brown found me. She told me God would protect us if we told the truth." He looked at Della, eyes shining, and she was right. The rest unfolded like a divine screenplay. For every lie spoken, a record appeared. For every denial, an eyewitness emerged. And when the lawyers tried to twist timelines, Della quietly read from the printed timestamp logs, her voice unwavering, her tone respectful, her authority unmistakable. Junwoo watched her with something like awe. This woman, this faith, this impossible timing. By afternoon, the room was no longer a boardroom. It was a courtroom in spirit. The presiding legal officer, an external judge called to oversee the hearing, reviewed the final evidence with clinical precision. Then he looked up. "Mrs. Han," he said flatly, "the fraud you orchestrated amounts to a direct violation of federal and international finance law. With Mr. Park's signed confession and these recovered files, the case is irrefutable." The stepmother's composure cracked. Her son stared down at his hands. Her daughter wept silently beside her. The judge turned to Junwoo. "You and Ms. Brown have presented your case well. I trust the Justice Department will handle the formal prosecution." He lifted the gavel, and in a sound that seemed to echo through time itself, bang. Case closed. The room erupted. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting, security ushering people out. But Della didn't move. She sat still, eyes closed, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Not from pride, not from relief, but from awe. Because she remembered what she had whispered the night she found the first lead. "Lord, if you're really with us, don't let the truth come too soon. Let it come right on time." And now, as the noise of victory filled the air, as Junwoo turned to her with quiet gratitude in his eyes, as justice finally stood where betrayal once sat, Della exhaled, smiling softly. "Right on time, Lord," she whispered. "Right on time." The morning sun over Seoul was mercilessly bright, a light too honest for a city built on secrets. Reporters lined the marble steps of the Han Group Tower, cameras flashing, microphones angled like arrows toward the entrance. Inside, thousands of shareholders and executives filled the grand auditorium. The air buzzed with anticipation, tension, and something else. Fear. Because no one knew what the CEO would say. Not after everything. Not after the boardroom war that had shattered a dynasty. Not after the headlines declared, "Han Empire in crisis. Heir turns against bloodline." And certainly not after the public found out who had helped him. A woman named Della Brown. Backstage, Della stood beside him. He adjusted his cufflinks, but his hands trembled slightly. The black suit was sharp, but his face, softer now, almost peaceful, carried something more powerful than authority. "Grace, are you ready?" she asked quietly. "No," he admitted, turning to face her. "But I'm done hiding." Her eyes softened. "Then speak truth, not strategy." He smiled faintly. "You always know what to say." "And you," she said, touching his arm, "always knew who you were. You just forgot." He looked at her for a long moment. "And you reminded me?" She nodded once. "No, Junwoo. God did. I was just there to witness it." The host announced his name. "Ladies and gentlemen, CEO Han Junwoo." A thunder of cameras, a rush of light. He stepped onto the stage. The applause was polite, uncertain, cautious. The crowd of executives, journalists, and investors waited for the polished speech, the numbers, the justification. But Junwoo Han didn't open with statistics. He opened with silence. He stood there, steady, letting the crowd feel the weight of his pause. Then he said, "Before we talk about profit, I want to talk about truth." He took off his watch, set it on the podium, a symbol of control laid down. "My father built this company to serve people. But somewhere along the line, we forgot that service and power aren't the same." The room stilled. He continued. "For years, the Han Group has been a house divided. Greed dressed itself in legacy. Pride disguised itself as vision, and I allowed it, because I was afraid to lose what my family built." He glanced toward the front row where his stepmother once sat, her seat now empty. "But I almost lost something far greater, my soul." A gasp rippled through the room. Cameras clicked like rain. He pressed on. "The crimes committed under this company's name are not alleged. They're real. Funds were stolen, lives ruined, truth silenced, but not anymore." He gestured to the large display behind him. A list of assets appeared. Private accounts, offshore holdings, properties, all signed for transfer. "Every stolen dollar," he said, "will go to restitution funds for families affected by our corruption and to foundations rebuilding what we destroyed." The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some whispered disbelief. Others clapped hesitantly. But then he lifted his gaze, voice quiet but steady. "And before you ask why, I'll tell you." He looked directly into the cameras. "Because grace did what power never could." He paused. "Because God's mercy reached a man who didn't believe in anything but control and changed him." He looked over to the side of the stage, where Della stood half hidden in the shadows, watching him with tearful eyes. "And because one woman refused to stop praying, even when I gave her every reason to." Every eye in the auditorium turned to her. Junwoo smiled, faintly, reverently. She fought with faith. She led with integrity. And through her courage, I found God's. The crowd didn't clap right away. They didn't know whether to cheer or cry. But the silence was the holiest sound he'd ever heard. He turned back to the podium, breath trembling slightly as he said the final words. "I spent my life building empires, skyscrapers, companies, legacies, all of it built on sand." He looked up, voice growing stronger. "If I ever build another empire..." He paused, just long enough to let the world listen. "It will stand on faith." The crowd rose to their feet, not in frenzy, but in awe. Della's tears finally fell. She clutched her Bible to her chest, whispering a single word as flashbulbs burst like falling stars across the room. "Amen." A full year had passed, but the city felt new, like everything old had been burned away, and what remained was refined. It was April now. Seoul bloomed with quiet hope, pink petals dancing down from cherry blossom trees like promises whispered from heaven. At the heart of the city stood a building with no name in lights, just a plaque by the entrance. Han Brown Foundation for Integrity and Innovation. Rooted in redemption, built for restoration. It was Junwoo's new empire, and this time, God owned every brick. Inside, children were coding their first apps. Single mothers were attending business classes. Former inmates were preparing for job interviews in suits donated by CEOs, who now followed Junwoo's weekly Faith Plus ethics meetings. He hadn't just stepped away from the old Han Group. He'd stepped into calling, and he never stepped in alone. Della walked every floor of that building like she was born for it. Not to be seen, but to serve. She wasn't just co-founder, she was co-visionary. The systems they built weren't just secure, they were sacred. Because for every policy written, every board approved, every dollar distributed, prayer came first. Every Monday morning began with open scripture. Every Friday ended with thanksgiving. And every time someone asked how it all came to be, Junwoo always gave the same answer: God, and the woman he sent to protect me before I even believed he existed. That afternoon, they walked through the Hanak garden behind the building. It had become their favorite place, a hidden patch of peace beneath blooming branches. Petals floated like snow, catching in Della's curls. She wore a soft cream dress and flats. No jewelry, no makeup, no walls, just her, his answered prayer. Junwoo held her hand, heart hammering beneath his linen shirt. "Do you remember our first rooftop?" he asked. She smiled. "How could I forget? You were emotionally constipated and allergic to vulnerability." He chuckled. "And you were terrifyingly composed." "Still am. Exactly why I never stood a chance." They paused beneath a cherry blossom tree. Wind kissed their faces. Then Junwoo turned to her fully. His voice dropped. His heart rose. "Della Brown," he said, reaching into his pocket. She blinked. "Junwoo." "I've said I loved you before," he said, "but today, I want to seal it." He pulled out a small velvet box, opened it. Inside was a ring so simple it almost didn't look expensive, until you noticed the inscription in gold, tucked beneath the band. Psalm 27, verse 1. "You were my light." Her hands trembled, but not from fear, just from the overwhelming peace of answered prayer finally blooming before her. He dropped to one knee. No cameras, no press, no flash, just presence. "You didn't just guard my life, Della," he said. "You guarded my heart." Her eyes filled. She knelt with him, brushing his face with her fingertips. "And God guarded us both." He slid the ring onto her finger, then held her hand to his lips, not to kiss it like a possession, but to thank it like a sacred trust. They stood slowly, forehead to forehead, and then they bowed their heads in prayer. No fanfare, just a whispered, "Thank you, Lord Jesus," from two hearts that knew they didn't earn this love. They were entrusted with it. Above them, cherry petals drifted in the breeze. Behind them, the skyline of a city that once tried to destroy them. Now, it just watched them shine. Cherry blossoms swirl in slow motion as Junwoo and Della stand hand in hand, heads bowed in prayer, the soul skyline glowing behind them. No longer a monument to power, but a witness to grace. The end. But their legacy is just beginning.